He's still the star, and I'm some idiot from Philly taking out the trash. I'm gonna make a call over to the Comedy Store. And that was like getting your acceptance letter. The great thing about laughter is it brings people together.
He's the comedian who walked away from a steady job to chase the dream of stand-up and never looked back.
This is awesome. There's nobody alive here.
Like, how does a comedian go to confession?
Often. That's how next week, bitches. Like,
you may have seen him make his Comedy Central debut on Gabriel Iglesias' Stand-Up Revolution.
Welcome back to Stand-Up Revolution. This dude is my boy. Give it up for Mr. Steve Simeone.
Steve's heartfelt and hilarious style has taken him across the globe.
but if I see somebody trying not to cry, then I'm gonna try not to cry.
He's toured with comedy legends like Andrew Dice Clay, Pauly Shore, Steve Rannazzisi, and Gabriel Iglesias.
Best movie ever, right?
And he's even brought laughter to U.S. troops stationed in Iraq and Afghanistan.
When we were on stage in the mountains of Afghanistan, we were no longer there. We turned it into the Comedy Store.
Oh, wow.
It was an orphanage for grown-ups. That's all the Comedy Store was. We had no place else to go. This is how legendary of a talent Robin Williams was, God rest his soul. Robin Williams, he's in a tuxedo walking through the parking lot, and he sees 8 no-name comedians hanging out in the back, and he goes, I just left a movie premiere. I'm sorry, can I just hang out with you guys?
Wow.
He was like, he goes, I was around the Hollywood people. I need to be around my own people tonight. And he just wanted to hang out with comics. Cool dude.
Bienvenido a Bar Vasco. Everything's bigger in Texas. Steve Simeone.
How are you, buddy?
It's Steve Simeone. We are here at the podcast with my favorite friend, comedian. It's Chef's Table. Steve Simeone. Welcome, man.
Thank you for having me.
I'm
It feels
glad-
weird that we have to do this to hang
Yeah,
out,
I
but
know.
it's like,
Well,
all right,
dude-
I'll do the podcast, but I just want to see you.
I'm glad you made time for me
Of course, always.
in a studio versus my backyard. So Steve,
Yeah,
I know that you are super happy that the Eagles won.
huge.
So you're from Philly.
Yep, grew up in Philly, the suburbs.
Yeah.
Place called Delaware County, Pennsylvania.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, it's like 10 minutes from the city.
Damn. And so tell me a little bit about Steve's journey, because I love your story, but man, people haven't heard this, and this is amazing.
Well, I mean, I grew up in a very, it's weird, you don't know the blessings you have sometimes, but I grew up in a very, like, loving home. You know, my parents are cool people, very Catholic people, and they were always like, God gave you special talents. You have to use your talents to glorify God. And I'm like, what's my special talent? I didn't know. And then I remember, like, going through my quarter-life crisis, and I'm like, man, I don't think I could do a normal job. I just didn't think I could do it. Like, to stay in a cubicle for 40 years, I'm like, man, that sounded like prison. And I was like, I'm going to be a comedian. And I went to LA on a vacation, and I fell in love with it. And then I had a buddy of mine that wanted to move it out there with me, and everybody's like, yeah, we're going to do it. Then nobody wanted to do it. I quit my job.
Wow.
And then I remember my mom was like, well, maybe Hollywood will come to you. And I'm like, Mom, you know how stupid that sounds? And as luck would have it, or fate, or whatever, the comedian Pauly Shore, whose mom started the Comedy Store in Hollywood, Pauly was
Pauly.
in. Yeah, dude,
Hey,
he came to Philly
No
for a
way.
comedy contest that I won.
Wow.
And I remember he was like, dude, you should be at the Comedy Store. He didn't know that I already quit my job, that my dream was to be at the Comedy Store. But he's like, hey, bro, you should be there. You're funny, dude. Like, I remember.
Can you try doing it in his
I
accent?
can't do a Pauly impression.
Hey, bro, you should do
I can do
it,
Pauly
man.
off stage. Hey, bro, you want to get a coffee? That's how it is off stage. Sweetest guy in the world.
Loved that guy growing up.
Dude, that guy's life story should be a movie. Like, he's told me stories, like when he was a little kid.
Yeah.
He's 8 years old, and he'd get woken up in the middle of the night because his mom would bring the after party back to the house.
Oh, from the comedy
From
store.
the comedy store. And he's like, you know what it's like to
What?
see Robin Williams
Oh,
in
no
your living room
way.
doing shots with
That's
Richard Pryor,
crazy.
and you're an 8-year-old kid?
You have no
absolutely.
clue probably at 8 years old.
His whole life was so different. Like, we became great friends, but he grew up in Hollywood. He was surrounded by the business. I'm some kid from Philly that's like, how do you even do this? I didn't even think I was allowed to do it. Like, I thought you almost like needed permission to be a comedian. Like, I thought they were just born different.
Huh.
But I got in my car one day and I had no job, no apartment, no credit card even. I mean, I was 25, 26, completely broke. I had like $2,000 to my name, and I just showed up in California.
At
And
the
this-
comedy store, right?
Yeah.
And you worked there.
Yeah, but that took a couple months.
Oh, that wasn't even like, I got the job.
No, nothing. Nothing in life ever works out like that, dude. And even when I got the job, it was $25 a night.
Ouch.
Yeah.
In LA.
In LA. Oh, dude, it was.
Rough.
I look back at all the stuff I've survived, and I'm like, how did that even happen? Like, how did it's got to be God.
Yes.
There's no way I could have survived all that stuff. I show up in LA, I sleep, but there was a kid I knew from high school. He graduated with my brother. He let me crash on his couch. Another guy, because like I did have a lot of support from friends that were like, go for it, dude. What do you have to lose? And my one friend was like, there's a great pizza place in Santa Monica. You got to check it out. I walk in there. That guy that owned the pizza place went to college with my other buddy's brother. He gave me a job delivering pizzas right away. So I'm living on a couch, delivering pizzas. Then I got in touch with Pauly, and Pauly was filming a movie, and he got me a production assistant job. It was like $50 a day.
Wow.
And it wasn't even every day's work. So I'm delivering pizzas. On the other days, I'm doing craft services, moving couches. I remember that's how I got my job at the Comedy Store. It was when I say all day shoot, we got there at like 7 o'clock in the morning, and now it's like 3 a.m. the next day. Independent budget, non-union. So I'm making $50, $100 for the day, almost 24 hours. And I remember just being so mad because, nobody really wants to work.
Yep.
No matter where you are, no matter what the environment, it's rare that people actually work. And I'm like, fine, I'll just take it myself. And I had to move a couch. It was a little love seat. And I did the contest with Pauly, but on the set of his movie, it's not like he's like, hey, dude, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
still the star, and I'm some idiot from Philly taking out the trash. But he saw me, to his credit. He's walking down the steps. I'm walking up the steps carrying a love seat. And when I got home, he called me, and he was like, bro, I really appreciate, because he financed this movie himself.
Wow.
He's like, I really appreciate how hard you're working, and I'm going to make a call over to the Comedy Store so you can get a job there. And that was like getting your acceptance letter to Harvard in the mail. To get a job at the Comedy Store meant you were now, if you played it right, you were plugged into a community where you could show up as a kid with a dream and leave a comedian.
Wow.
And for that experience, I'm forever grateful to the Comedy Store.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, because this is what we had to do for the open mic. The only reason I wanted a job at the Comedy Store, so I didn't have to sign up for the open mic. This is what it was like 25 years ago. They would put a list out on Saturday night, Sunset Strip. So you had to pay for parking. There's no meters. So it costs like $20 to park. I'm starving. It costs like $20 to park. Then you go to the Comedy Store, write your name on a list. Then you have to come back the next day
And hope that you made it.
to draw a number.
Oh, no.
To see if you made it to
That's
perform the
crazy.
following Sunday. So you would have to commit to 3 nights of time, 3 different days to try to get a 3-minute spot on stage.
Were you getting paid for this at all?
No.
Wow.
Dude, I didn't get paid to do stand-up at the Comedy Store. It took me 8 years.
Wow. 8 years.
Yeah. Now, Mitzi, Pauly's mom, who's the godmother of comedy, I could write a book about how awesome that lady was. But she had a club in San Diego, so she was good to me. She would she'd pay me to go down to San Diego.
Nice.
But she wouldn't let me. I was not ready yet for her club in Hollywood.
Wow.
It's crazy. 8 years. So the funny thing is, dude, like, you know how hard it is to do something on your own.
Oh, completely.
So I try to help everybody.
Yeah.
That's just my nature. And like when I was in LA and people are like, you're a comedian? My friend wants to be a comedian, or there's a funny guy at work, or I want to be a comedian. So I'm like, whatever I can do to help, let me help you. And this is true, bro. I would meet whoever it was that said they wanted to do comedy. I would meet them at the Comedy Store on the open mic night, and I would show them the whole process. I'd explain everything to them. And I'm like, your only job is to keep showing up. I'm like, meet me here every week. If you hang out, you eventually will get a job here.
Wow.
And dude, I don't think in 20 years anybody came 3 weeks in a row.
What?
I don't think so. And I did it for like 8 years. I worked every single job there.
I think that's with any art or trade or craft. You know, the people that are gonna continue their success are the ones that are like, I'm gonna show up no matter what.
No matter what.
Because I mean, I know I did.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I was an anchor for Telemundo, and I did not like that at all, and that was a means to an end for me for cooking.
Yep.
And I talked to my guys. I talked to the class. A lot of I ran into some of my old classmates from culinary school. You know, mind you, I didn't graduate. I didn't
know that.
I walked out of the class.
What made you walk out?
Because I asked the dean. You know, it was I was signed up for the bachelor program, and I realized that it was a joke. After your AA, the classes that were coming up, the professors were just you know, like, hey, you buy me a beer, I'll give you an A.
Gotcha.
And I was like, that's not what I want to, like, I don't want to learn how to cook by, you know, or just get a degree. So I started to realize as I was working in the kitchen that some of these guys were just, you know, never really made it as chefs. They were just like, you know, professors.
Yeah.
But they never really worked in the industry. And that's who they had. Because it wasn't that prominent back then. It wasn't like, oh, you know, culinary school, we're going to have some of the best chefs teaching you. That didn't happen until later. So I asked the dean, I was, hey, I just want to get my AA. Yeah. You know, I've got all my credits. You know, I've got all my classes. I said, I think I just have like one semester left. Yeah. He goes, you can't do that. I was like, why? I signed up for my bachelor's, but I just want to go back to my AA. He goes, yeah, once you're signed up, you can't go backwards. I said, but I haven't taken any of my bachelor classes. I was like, so wait, so you're telling me that I can't just go and get my AA with you guys? I'm like, well, how could I do that? He goes, well, if you quit. I said, okay, well, fuck you, I quit.
Yeah, man.
Just like that. And he was like, excuse me? I was like, smell you later. And then I went and worked my butt off. And then I was like, okay, it's on me now.
It's the only way.
And I linked up with a chef in Denver and just buried myself and tried to surround myself with the right people. And that's how my journey started. But
that's cool.
So to your testimony,
you have
man,
to do
amazing.
it to do it too.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You can learn about cooking, you can learn about comedy, but you have to get on stage. You have to get in the kitchen.
Yep.
You're going to make mistakes.
That's crazy.
And that's cool, man. That's part of the process. It's all about learning and persistence, and that's it.
How cringy was like when you knew a joke that you thought was going to be super funny and you bombed it and you're like, hi.
I got used to. Okay, so here's like
Hola.
Honestly, the worst thing was also the best
Soy
thing.
Steve.
Dude, there's a place in San Diego. I don't know how many it seats. It's called 4th and B. It's a giant. It's like maybe 800. It's
800
huge.
people?
Yeah.
Gosh.
So they used to do a free comedy show. They would let everybody in free, but the thing was to try to sell them booze.
Yeah. I was going to say that. It's probably something to do with booze. It's always got to be.
Always.
Booze is the answer.
Dude, I bombed. So I remember who I followed. There was a kid who's blown up now on the Patrick Bet-David show, my buddy Vinny.
What are you looking at me for, bro?
I was never a fan of oysters until I met Oysters Mock Show. This is a Native American inspiration created in Louisiana with corn, peppers, spicy, cornmeal dusted, to die for. The corn, it's really corny, like my jokes. All right, I'm gonna try one, but this is a pretty big one, and I'm not gonna be able to speak after this, but my mouth is watering. You can
see the corn dripping, the bell peppers. You know, traditionally they're supposed to be baked in or fried in bacon grease. We use a little lard. I need a spoon for this. And what did I say? Here's my spoon. Bro, this camera stuff is great because you ask for stuff and you get it. $1 million, please. Bienvenido a Bar Vasco.
He's an MC. He crushed it. I mean, I remember he was doing a bit on Dora the Explorer, being a gangster. And with that crowd, it was kind of a rough crowd. I came out and I just didn't connect with the audience. And I'm like, this isn't going well. 2 minutes in, I haven't gotten a laugh yet. I'm like, uh-oh. Now the audience can sort of sense it's not happening for me. I remember going, all right, I'm supposed to do 20 minutes or a half an hour. I'm like, just let me get to my closing bit to try to get the laugh. That's when I start hearing the boos. I really thought, boos. Wow. I had so much stress. I had an out-of-body experience. I saw myself on stage bombing. Like it was the worst a show could happen. I really thought somebody in the crowd was just going to stand up and say, get him. And 1,000 people were going to charge the stage.
Charge.
But that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I remember going, if this is as bad as it gets, it's not that bad. They just didn't laugh. Yeah. And I went, oh, I'm going to start doing what I really want to do. The two best lessons I learned in comedy came through failure. Was that where I said, all right, even if it never the worst response ever still isn't that bad. Nobody beat me up. It made me realize how insignificant what I do is. Yeah. Like, I'm like, if you're a doctor and you have a bad day, somebody might die. If you're in law enforcement and you have a bad day, you might not come home. If you're a teacher and you have a bad day, that kid might get turned off from learning for the rest of his life. But if I have a bad day, they just don't laugh.
If you're a chef and you feed somebody...
You give them food poisoning.
Yeah.
That would be a bad day. Yeah, that would be a bad day.
Or like, yeah, there's no shellfish in there.
Dude, I honestly think what I do is the lowest stakes. I go, they just didn't laugh. So let me start to do what I really want to do.
That's insane.
On stage. And then another time where I bombed horrifically was I got booked. There was a casino in Vegas called the Riviera. It was an old school casino,
oh my
bro.
Gosh. Didn't they film like one of the gangster movies?
I think they filmed Casino across the street at what was that place called? I think the casino where they filmed Casino. I opened up for Andrew Dice Clay there.
Oh, I was going to ask you about Andrew.
Dude, we stayed in the Sinatra suite. It was the craziest thing ever. There was a suite in Vegas, and it was like 3-level apartment at the top of a casino.
Man, you opened up for Andrew Dice Clay?
Yeah.
That's insane.
But it was the weird thing was he was just my buddy Andrew. You know, like when I saw him, I'm like, oh my goodness, that's Dice.
Does he normally talk like that? Hey, what?
He's the
what
sweet.
A bang.
He's the hanging out with Andrew he makes you feel like you're 13 again.
Oh, that's so cool.
And you're just everything's funny, and you just want to laugh. You're just laugh like he is a genius. I don't think Hollywood understands the levels of his comedic thinking, but if you're blessed to be his friend and to hang out with him, just a simple trip to the mall, it's like being a kid again. It's the funniest
awesome
thing ever. Like,
that's cool.
Like he was going through this phase where we would like walk through the mall, and if there was, people in front of you, he would just go, "Sir," and as soon as they would turn around, he would pretend he didn't say it, and then the person would be like, "Excuse me," and I'm like, "I didn't say anything." Or he would say like he was like a 12-year-old. Or if somebody had a lot of bags, he would yell, "You dropped something," and then die laughing when they're looking around for it. Like he's
that guy,
a very fun, different from his comedic persona, but even funnier. But I'm blessed to have mentors like that early on. And when I did the Riv, I bombed every show except for my last one.
What? Was it the same skit every time?
Yeah, I would try to. At the time I was a kid, and it was like a different demographic. It was older people. I didn't know how to connect with them or whatever. But you become a better comic and you grow. And
those world experiences, you think they help?
Yeah, it's all experience. But I made up my mind that I would start enjoy. Like I came back to LA from Vegas, and my life was terrible. Like I didn't have a car. I was sharing a Section 8 apartment with a dude with cerebral palsy that was kind of a gangster. He wound up kicking me out for a stripper. Like you can't write. So then I moved in with a recently divorced ex-Elvis impersonator.
Oh my gosh.
Like, dude, my life was like, I'm probably going to write a book about it at some point.
I can't wait to read it.
But dude, I was like, my life sucks. I had 3 minutes of stage time at the Comedy Store.
That was your claim
every
to
week,
fame at the time.
and that was what I lived for. Was that 3 minutes?
Now, did your parents like Stevie,
Nope.
come home, Stevie?
Nobody knew how bad it was
Oh wow,
because I didn't want to burden them.
man,
with
I
it.
can relate to that. I can totally relate to that. That's
Yeah.
insane.
I didn't realize that most kids that go to Hollywood, they're rich kids. You know, I didn't realize that.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
very naive.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how I make it through life, dude. But I remember like 10 years in, I'm like,
God put you on the right path, man.
yeah, that's it. It's just faith.
Yeah.
It's just faith. But like, yeah, like if I didn't work, I didn't eat. So I always had multiple. For my first 10 years in LA, I always had 2 or 3 jobs in addition to comedy and acting classes and writing and anything. Like I didn't even consider what I do now a job. I'm like, I'm doing telemarketing. I'm making pizzas. I worked at a boxing gym graveyard shift. It was like a Tarantino movie, dude. Like I didn't, being naive once again, guys would come in custom-made suits at 3 o'clock in the morning and go kick heavy bags. I didn't think that they were maybe doing different extracurricular they were just my buddies.
Nefarious.
I will say this though, dude. All the characters that would come work out in the middle of the night, you know what we talk about? God.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I think people that are on the fringes, they're on the front lines of that battle between good and evil. They know God's real. Like there were some scary individuals that would come in there, but the biggest, best hearts.
Yeah. I see that. Like I remember you said that LA was like the saddest place on earth.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy because, you know, Disney's like the happiest place on earth.
Mm-hmm.
And LA, I saw it when I was there. And, you know, I feel like people sell themselves
Yeah.
for fame.
Sad.
To be great, you know, like, oh, you know, I get my 10 minutes of fame. And they'll just, you know, man, it's crazy. It's great. So I know you went through some harsh times.
Yeah.
And you were talking about them. And I want to ask you so many questions because you know, Fluffy was one of my favorite comedians.
He's the greatest guy.
I love, like, I can't go to sleep. Like, you know, I'll watch comedy when I try to go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, you know, you were on the Tony show.
Oh, Kill Tony?
Kill Tony.
Hinchcliffe, another buddy of mine.
And-
He's another great guy.
And I can go to sleep, not because he's not funny and the show's not, it's just because, you know, there's a lot of, like, talking.
Yeah.
So I can, like, put that in and go to sleep. But, man, I hear Fluffy and, you know, that guy's, he's like,
brilliant.
"Ah!"
Let me tell you one thing about Gabe. He's even nicer
Yeah.
than you would hope. He's a saint.
Yep.
Like,
Oh,
there's
wow.
nobody more generous. There's nobody kinder. He's a very, very special person. Like, I knew of his legend when I got to the Comedy Store because he started to get some opportunities as a relatively young dude. I think he had a show on, like a sketch comedy show on Nickelodeon, if memory serves me right.
I remember him like I saw him getting, and I'm not trying to be terrible, but I remember he was young,
Yeah, he was
and I
a
saw him
kid.
getting fatter. And, you know,
He looks
it's how I
great
know-
now, by the way.
Yeah, it's
Dude,
crazy.
he's training like a beast. I remember for a while, I forget which professional boxer he was working out with. But dude,
But he was so funny. I cannot fall asleep to his stuff because
you want to stay up and listen to it. Yeah.
and even stuff that I've heard already before. His comedy is just
It's like great music.
And it's
Does that
clean,
make sense?
you know?
He's a hero of mine. As first and foremost as a person.
Yep.
Like he treats I opened up for him once at Radio City Music Hall in New York.
Oh wow, New York. Nice.
And you know what Gabe did? There were numerous amounts of fans that knew the stage door that were waiting for him. Shook everybody's hand,
wow,
signed autographs for everybody,
that's so cool.
took pictures with everybody. gave them a piece of his time. He's such a giving person that he's been in my prayers ever since I met him because I was always afraid he was going to give too much of himself. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I don't know if that dude has the right boundaries. He's just that giving. He's a special person, dude.
Well,
He was the first guy to put me on TV.
I'll tell you, I know you say that about these guys, but I feel that way about you. You know, first time I met you, you brought me this Italian.
Oh, yeah, you don't show up empty-handed. What am I, a savage? Yeah,
No,
you don't
but
show up
And then
empty-handed.
you're like, yeah, my mom makes the best lasagna.
Yeah, you got to come over. If you're
I'm
on the
still waiting on the
list.
lasagna, by the way.
Yeah, but I remember I went to Mazzaro's. I'm like, what do you
Yeah, you were at Mazzaro's.
restaurant? He owns the best restaurant. What do you bring? And my mom's like, how about cookies? You buy the cookies, I'll do the tray. You got to get the little candies. I'll make it look nice.
Yeah, you show up at my house and I'm like, man, I'm on a diet. Shit, like, it did me well. You know, but yeah, and ever since then, I mean, you know, every time I see you, man, I get so happy. You know,
I feel the same way.
Yeah,
but I think it's a Holy Spirit connection.
I agree.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to talk. I want to know, you know, because I've heard some of your older stuff, and you had a transition
For sure.
Like you went like,
Yep.
and man, that's so commendable. You know, you know, I know you're like, oh, I'm not a famous comedian. I think you're a famous comedian. You know, and I love what you do, and I love that you do it, and you're so, you know, honed in on faith and God, and man, there's so many people that don't know that. You know, comedy can get really dark.
For sure.
And I've seen comedians, and you know, I don't follow them. Maybe when I was a kid, I used to think it was kind of funny, but I try to stay away from all that dark comedy.
Me too.
Because I don't think it does nothing for me.
Dude, I have a buddy of mine, and I think he's coming to town in May. I want you to meet him. Did 20 years with the Green Berets.
Wow.
He's a real life G.I. Joe.
Gosh.
And he's a philanthropist, and he really helps veterans. He's a quality human. He's a real Christian.
Cool.
And we were on the phone a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, man, I don't even listen to the same music I used to listen to. And he was like, brother, that's just a side effect of Jesus. I go, what? He goes, if Jesus was a pharmaceutical, they'd have to warn you of all the side effects at the end of the commercial. You might want to change your friends. You might stop listening to the same music. You might start watching different TV shows. And I've seen that with myself. Like stuff that I used to love, I still enjoy it, but I can't, like a show like Breaking Bad. I love that. But now I watch an episode and I'm like, I think I'm good, man.
Yeah.
Like I can't be around that dark energy too much.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, so I do the same thing with music.
100%.
You know, I was like, you know what? Like every once in a while I'll get the wild hair on my butt.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to listen to it. And then I'm like, you know, halfway through it, I'm like, I'm good.
That's exactly what
You
I
know,
do with music, TV.
I enjoyed
all of
it. You know,
Yeah.
that was all I needed. You know, and I go back to it. And
Exactly.
And you're right. I mean, you know, when was that pivotal? Was it when you left LA, or were you in LA when you were like,
Dude, I wish I could tell you that I had a Saul to Paul conversion, but I didn't. It was just very gradual.
that's awesome.
You know, like everybody's on their own journey. God's got a plan for everybody. For me, I always believed, but as a younger dude, I kind of thought I had to be perfect, and I was putting all this pressure on myself to be perfect.
I think that's like the way you explained it. It's like it's like trying to lose weight on Ozempic. You know,
Yeah.
if you just jam it in there and try to like knock it out, you're gonna go right back to your old ways. But if it's gradual,
Yeah, it's real.
it sticks, and that's important. You know, like
Yeah.
that's why I haven't taken Ozempic. You know,
Right.
I'm losing
But
weight.
dude, people
gradual.
don't want to hear it.
There's my
They go,
joke. You know,
it's diet and exercise. Like, dude, that's why I love being
Yeah.
Catholic. Like, so many of my friends aren't Catholic, but I feel lucky to be
Yep.
Catholic because people are like, well, how do you get closer to God? I'm like, confession and mass.
Yep.
I go, we have sacraments. The Holy Spirit's alive.
Yep.
I go, and I rely on him. I don't do any of this myself. I mess up. I go confess my sins, and then I go receive Jesus. That's it. It's no longer I who lives, but Christ who lives within me. That's it.
And that, you know, that's a hard path. People don't realize how hard it is to follow that, especially now in day and age when with our kids, like my son, you know,
Yeah.
keeping him, you know, for his birthday, we were at your house.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And, you know, I'm telling you, he came up to me and was like, Papi, because he calls me Papi.
That's
You know,
awesome.
he's like, I love our community. I love the people that you bring me close to. And I was like, man, that was touching because you had that priest here from South Africa.
From Ghana.
Ghana.
Yeah, Father Francis, that dude's a saint.
Amazing. Like,
He's a saint.
the way he spoke was like,
Yeah.
you know, and
and
I was
he
like,
lives it, man. He feeds people. He helps people.
incredible.
Beautiful
Incredible.
heart.
I took a picture of Lucas out there. You know, he's in confession. He's sitting there talking to him. And he's so patiently. And I was like, man, you know, this is what it's. I'm so blessed to be able to do this, you know?
Yes.
And he doesn't realize it, you know, but to be around people like you know, Steve, you have a busy life. You're in and out. Like I'm like, hey, Steve. Hey, buddy.
Yeah.
Hey, get out.
Yeah.
You know, you're in like Austin. You're hanging out with Joe Rogan.
Yeah, that guy's the coolest. That's another dude who's even cooler than you think.
Oh my gosh, man! I want one of his cigars. You got to give me one of his cigars next time.
I'll ask my buddy Ari. He's usually my hookup.
I think I would say, like, I value what you do and the time that you give your friends and your family.
That's what life is.
Yeah, because, you know, and I'm sure you can talk to it. Like, you can get lost in it. You can totally get lost. And man, how did you do that? How did you bring that back? Like, say, hey, you know what, man, I've got to bring it back. Like, what was like? There's got to be something that was
Did
like
you know
very
what
defining.
happened? Yeah, you know what was defining? St. Patty's Day, 2005.
Wow.
I woke up with a horrific hangover. I drank probably 15 hours. Like, I put in work with some of my buddies. And I woke up hungover. And I knew there was nobody to blame but myself. I went, I did this to me. And I went, okay, Lord, I can take responsibility for this one night. But when I die, I don't want to have a hangover for my life.
Oh, wow.
I don't want to, after whatever time you give me, I don't want to be in front of your throne going, I messed up. I blew it. You gave me this chance to love and serve. And the only thing I did was try to make myself special or pleasure or whatever. However, there's a million ways a soul can get lost. There's only one way a soul can get found.
Wow.
So I had to just surrender to Jesus. And dude, it wasn't overnight.
No, of course.
Even then, I was just like, but dude, that, you know, it's a real hangover when you wake up and you're like, I got to go back to church. Like, that's, my life was out of control. And it was because I wasn't healed. That's why I don't judge anybody. Like, I just wanted to be liked so much. I just wanted to be one of the guys. I wanted people to say I was cool or funny. I wanted to just be accepted. And I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. And I'm like, well, I'm the drunk party guy. Who doesn't love that dude?
Yeah.
And I was killing myself. And I said, I can't do this anymore. And that's when Jesus carried my cross. Like, for whatever reason, not my parents, not the church, it was me. But I kind of viewed that in order to call myself a Christian, I had to be perfect. I really thought that, like, there was a worthiness. And as our buddy, Father Zach, he said the other day, he ended his homily, he said, it's better to be beloved than worthy. That's the whole message of the prodigal son. Wow. And I was like, I didn't know God loved me. Oh. You know, like, my whole life I believed, but I always kind of viewed God as like a mob boss that I owed money to. You know what I mean? Like, dude, I'll get you tomorrow. Like, oh, I can't pay it. Look, I'm working on it. Like, I felt like I had a gambling debt to God that I couldn't, and I kept on losing games. Like, all right, I'm going to be perfect today. And then I'm like, look at her.
Dang,
you know what I mean?
His hand today.
Yeah. The Yankees hit a walk-off, I'm doomed. Like, that's where my spiritual life was.
The Yankees. That's so
and
funny.
then, dude,
Poor
I
Yankees.
remember when I really,
joke.
dude, I heard Jesus' voice when I was stuck in LA traffic.
Oh, wow.
And this completely selfish move, 101 freeway right in front of the Hollywood Bowl. It's like 8 lanes of traffic. People drive like pirates, dude. They're cutthroat. And this guy cuts me off, and I lose it in my, I didn't scream at the guy, but I'm just thinking very uncharitable thoughts towards this human being. And I felt Jesus talk to me, and he was like, whoa, 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 I love that guy. Oh, you love that guy? He goes, I died for him. Yeah, I love him. And I go, well, if you love that guy, you got to at least like me.
Yeah.
I remember saying that to God, and he was like, when are you going to get it? I love you. But I'm like, but I'm so messed up. I'm not perfect. And he was like, but I am. He is.
Yeah.
You know?
Gosh.
Dude, it's so cool, bro.
Yeah. You know, I still struggle with that. Mm-hmm. I struggle with that daily.
Yeah.
You know, and I always try to tell my kids, you know, we pray with Josefina, you know, my little girl. She's so
She might
sweet.
actually be perfect.
Yeah, she's so freaking perfect. But you know what she'll do in the middle of the, she'll be like, hey, we didn't pray. Right? We're like, you're right. We didn't pray. My son, and Luke is like, oh, bro, why? You know how he gets. But we know the funny thing is that
So great.
she'll say it and we'll all pray.
That's awesome.
You know, and Lucas too. You know, I think it's tough. I mean, for me, my defining moment was, you know, when I met Monica, and she's like, oh, you're talking about me, you know, but it was because I was like that, you know, airplanes. I love airplanes, right?
Yeah.
Sounding fun. I was like an airplane just doomed to crash. Like I was like,
Yeah.
And then I met her.
So God works.
And I was like, thank you. And man, you know, 20 years later, you know,
That's
and
awesome.
I still feel blessed. You know, we'll fight, we'll, you know, argue and all that, but
We're humans.
But the love is always there, you know, and the gratitude and what we've been able to accomplish together.
Unbelievable.
You know, so I love your friendship and I love what
I
you
feel
bring
the
to the
same
table.
way.
You know, man, that's crazy that you were able to transition like that. And then what? Did you move out of?
So,
Like, how long did you stay in LA? Like in the most miserable place on earth?
I was there for 20 years.
Wow. After that, or
Well,
during that?
dude, well, here's the weird thing. Like when I was driving across country, it was the summer of 2000. And there was a billboard campaign some awesome Christian philanthropist started. And there was just literally billboards as I'm driving in the middle of nowhere. And the billboards would say, what would you do for me if you knew you would not fail? Jesus. And I really felt like I was the Blues Brothers. Like I thought I was on a mission from God, right? Like I'm like, I'm going to become rich and famous. I'm going to buy my parents a beach house, and I'm going to save everybody, man.
Yeah.
And about 4 or 5 years into my journey was when I had the hangover that changed my
Wow,
life.
2005, yeah.
And then I was there for another 15 years. And I know for sure, like I started to learn how to surrender more. I know God wanted me there for a reason. I used to exhaust myself trying to play detective with God. Like this will happen, so this could happen, and then this happens. And then I would exhaust myself trying to be God's backup plan.
Yeah.
I'm like, if this gig comes through, I can pay these bills, but if it doesn't, I'm going to work on all this stuff over here. And then I slowly learned how to just let go. And I remember the spring of 2019, I have a great buddy of mine. His name's Steve Renazizi. He was on this TV show called The League. He's one of the funniest dudes ever. And he was such a good friend. He let me stay in his condo for free. He was like, hey, man, just don't quit.
Oh, cool.
Just don't quit. I believe in your talent that much. And then he let me live there for free for a couple of years. Then I started to pay rent. Then in 2019, he sold his condo. And I'm like, all right, Jesus, I'm out. I gave you 19 years.
What?
Because what was really weighing me down, honestly, about Los Angeles, I love hanging out with comedians. That's my tribe.
Yeah.
Because we're all broken in our own way, but so broken people are always cooler. They're not trying to be perfect. They're not trying.
No.
What you see is what you get, and it's always just be funny, bro.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine every night you're hanging out with the funniest people on earth? I had to give that up. But by 2019, I'm like, I love the Comedy Store, but I hate Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Dude, I would wake up and I would say good morning to people, and they would just stare through me. I would hold doors open for people.
No, thank you.
Nothing.
Oh.
And I have a dear friend of mine, my buddy Luis, and somebody's got to do a documentary on Luis. Luis was born in Puerto Rico with severe cerebral palsy.
Oh, man.
He didn't speak for the first 8 years of his life. The first time they thought he was never going to talk. His first words weren't words. He did a Hulk Hogan promo to his mom when he was 8 years old. Like, what you gonna do, mom, when Hulkamania runs wild on you?
No
She was like,
way.
Luis, you can speak? And he was like, you got that right, brother. Like, it just happened.
Wow.
So Luis, what I do love about LA, because I don't want to beat it up, I love that dreamers from all over the world had this magical place where you could meet people that understood you. You know, like one of my first jokes about the Comedy Stores, I said, there was a cartoon I loved as a kid. It was called, they played every Christmas, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Oh, yeah.
And then when Rudolph went to the Island of Misfit Toys, he's like, this is where I fit in. That's what the Comedy Store was for me.
That's cool.
It was the Island of Misfit Toys. It was all these dudes that just didn't quite fit in their hometown. And we had this beautiful family. The Comedy Store's a family. It was the first place. It was easy not to drink at the Comedy Store. Like after 4 or 5 years, I went, I'm going to give up drinking. I thought I was going to lose all my friends. And then they were like, oh, okay, we don't care. And I could be myself.
Cool.
I was accepted, you know? So Luis decided to move out there. Puerto Rico, goes to San Diego first. I'm not exaggerating. Poor kid is in his wheelchair outside the Comedy Store in San Diego, gets hit by a drunk driver crossing the street. So born with cerebral palsy, then paralyzed.
Wow.
Yeah. So Luis is also hilarious. I don't hang out with him because he's I hang out with him because he's hilarious. So he used to like to go to the movies. And he told me why he loves the movie theater so much. He said, Steve, when I'm in that movie theater, I'm no different than anybody else.
Oh, wow.
He's like, we're all sitting down and we're getting lost in that screen. That's powerful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So we're at a very nice movie theater in Sherman Oaks called the ArcLight, like the fancy, like a nice area, expensive movie theater. I'm with Luis. I never knew, you don't know what you don't know, but those handicapped doors, you press a button and the doors swing open.
Yeah.
I never knew why they were like that, but the button's broken and Luis has got this giant wheelchair.
Oh.
And I'm trying to hold the one door open, leaning over Luis's wheelchair so he can get under. I'm trying to hold 2 doors. Multiple people see me struggling with Luis.
And they don't
They
care.
go like this. And then literally open the next door right next to us. Nobody stopped to help us. And I said, Lou, how
That's
often does that
crazy.
happen? He goes, Steve, it happens every day. And I went, I'm done with Los Angeles. The worst neighborhood in Philadelphia, you could have a guy in the middle of a shootout with the cops. If he saw Luis struggling, he would hold the door for him.
Yep.
It's a different culture. And it's not the people that grow up in LA.
No.
And it's not the people working normal jobs there. I lived in an all-Russian neighborhood, first-generation Americans. They were the greatest people
You think
I've been around.
It's
They
a
were-
transience?
It's all the rich kids that move there that want to prove to the world they're special. Then they get mad that they're not famous. It's your fault that nobody read their script, that they didn't even write. You know how many writers I met in LA that never finished a script? You know how many actors I met that never went on an audition?
It's so funny. I have a couple guys from Miami that are like that. And they all went to LA and came back home.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you know.
It's
like,
work.
Yeah, you
It's
gotta
the
work.
greatest job in the world, but you got to work.
Yep. So here's whenever when you go to confession,
Yeah. Often. I'm a
Yeah.
very flawed human being.
have you ever gone in there and
Yeah.
be like, oh, this is a good joke? You know, comedian comes into a confession with a priest.
Dude, I remember about 2 months ago.
Zach's going to be watching this and be like, Marcos, shut up.
Father Zach once said something that changed my life. Well, not once. Sorry, Padre.
Yeah.
Many times.
Yeah.
But I remember him saying, look, I don't need details. And he said, the least significant thing in a confessional is your sin. He goes, that's the least significant thing. He goes, and it's an encounter with God's mercy and love. Focus on that. And bro, that changed up my whole game. I used to be petrified. I'd be like,
Man, confessions are terrible. Like, especially like if I miss mass, or if I do it like multiple times, I would go in there and you know, I know the priests.
yeah. Try
So
to
I'm like-
disguise your voice. Hello.
Yeah. No, the worst is when you're like, you sit right in front of them like we are sitting, and you're like, oh gosh, I got to tell them everything.
Dude, this is how I changed. I used to be so afraid of it. And then during COVID, when I was still living in LA, they were doing confession outside, but they didn't think it through. So the priest is hearing confessions right next to the front door of the church, and there's people close, walking in the church closer.
Listening to you.
Yeah, but I was like, Father, I don't care. Just get it off.
I
I don't care.
murdered 4 guys.
I did it. Fine.
Yeah.
I'm the worst guy in the world. Just get it off.
I ran over the old lady. I murdered 4 guys.
She had D cups, Padre. I'm only human.
Did you say D cups? Oh my gosh, man! Like I think I'm like, how does a comedian go to confession? You know,
Often.
Yeah.
That's how comedians.
Man, I had to say the joke.
Oh man, I had a buddy of mine.
You're like sitting up on top of like your comedy spit. I gotta say it. You're like, don't say it. Say it. Don't
My
say
favorite
it.
comedian is this guy, Joey Diaz. He's the funniest guy in the world. And his first comedy album was called It's Either You or the Priest.
Oh man,
So he just went up, and it's essentially that's how raw and honest his comedy is.
wow.
And that's what it should be.
Yep.
That's what it should be.
So, who's one of your like, I would say, comedians that you're like, man, this guy is super funny. I love hanging out with him all the time. Every time I go anywhere where he's at, we hang out.
Well, probably my two, I've mentioned a lot of my friends, right?
Yep.
But Ari Shaffir he's one of the rare comedians where, in my very humble opinion, and I would say this if he wasn't a dear friend, but every special he gets better.
Oh, cool.
And I've noticed, because I've been a comedy fan my whole life, generally that first special's a killer or that second special's a killer. And then they sort of get a little watered down. The fame gets to them, the money, they're not grinding as hard. Or maybe you just run out of stuff to say.
Yep.
Right? You only have, I can't wait until I'm like, I think I did it. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go stay in Polk County full time. But Ari Shaffir is a brilliant comedian and an even better person. Everybody in my crew, they're awesome people, first and foremost. Like there's a wild man comedian, and I love the fact that he's finally getting his flowers in Austin, Texas. This guy's a lunatic. His stage persona, he's the sweetest man in the world. But he's such an outlaw comedian that after September 11th, I was managing the Comedy Store. I got promoted from answering phones to manager in a day.
What?
Because they found the manager passed out in the walk-in fridge, and he did whippets with all the whipped cream in the club.
Oh my gosh.
So, and then Mitzi Shore, the godmother
Why is it
of
always
comedy.
got to be something with a chef or a culinary or a kitchen? It's always got to end up in the kitchen, in the walk-in cooler.
Dude, passed out. Oh, you're going to manage the club. I'm like, me? But so I'm managing the club on September 11th. I remember vividly. It was one of the very few times the club ever closed. Because Mitzi, a lot of people don't know this about her, but I got very close with her.
That's
And
Pauly Shore's mom.
Pauly Shore's
Yep.
mom. She changed the face of comedy forever. But she was also very close to God.
Cool.
And she was like, God, this is God's plan. This isn't my plan. And my job is that I create these comedians that'll heal the world and bring people together. She always thought that was her mission.
Huh.
So she always liked to keep the club open. But out of respect for the country, I think
She
the Comedy
closed
Store
it.
was 3 or 4 days they were shut down after
Wow.
September 11th. But then she called me. She was like, under no circumstances is Brian Holtzman allowed on stage. He will cause a riot. We need to at least give the country another week
Yeah.
to heal before
Oh my
Brian.
gosh.
And Holtzman has his own show like 2 nights a week at the Mothership where it's like, you don't go in there if you're easily offended. He is absolutely as buck wild as a comedian can get, but he's the greatest guy in the world. He's the sweetest guy. The weirdest thing, dude, is like I do like nerdy comedy for your grandma. Like it's all ages. I do the same act at 3:00 in the afternoon at a evangelical church as I would at the Comedy Store at midnight. I don't change who I am. But my friends are the most wild comedians in the world with what they do on stage, but which I find hilarious.
Yep.
But they're just good people. They're good people. You want to hang out with them.
So, speaking of like September 11, man, so you went to Iraq. I remember you telling me you
Yeah, I've
went
been
to
Afghanistan, Iraq.
to
I've been all
Afghan.
over the world for the troops.
How is for the church? Did you say for the church?
For the troops.
Oh, for the troops. I was like, what? For the church?
Who knows what God has planned next? I don't know.
So, man, how is that? Like, you're out there, you're doing comedy for
Honestly,
these guys.
dude, it was the first time I saw comedy as something worthwhile.
Wow.
Like, I had that experience I shared, but when I got I bombed and got booed off stage.
No pun intended.
Yeah. And I went, all right, what I do is not that important. Going to a war zone and providing relief was the first time ever, and I don't like to think about it because if I think about the responsibility of that, I'll get overwhelmed.
Yeah, I bet.
But when we were on stage in the mountains of Afghanistan, we were no longer there. We turned it into the Comedy Store.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? Like, everybody was in the moment laughing. And
Awesome.
And then what as I matured, I realized what we did off stage was even more important than what we did on. So, like, you give them the show lasts 2 hours or whatever. But if you stay and hang out with the guys,
oh, that's priceless.
then it's like they got a 6-hour break from hell.
Wow.
And I remember one of the best conversations I ever had. I was probably pushing 40 at the time. And this
So 100 years ago? I'm just kidding.
So this guy was about my age. He wasn't a kid, is my point.
Yeah.
And we were the last two people awake. And he was like, I'm about to retire. I've made my peace with what I've done.
Oh, wow.
He goes, I've made my peace with it. But I made a promise to God and myself that if I ever commit another act of violence, regardless of the situation, I'll consider myself a failure. And I'm like, am I talking to John Wick right now? You know what I mean? Like, dude, some of those guys, they are they're ninjas.
I think they're out there and they change.
They're the coolest people I've ever met.
The
coolest people I've ever met.
I've talked to guys that are like, man, they get so taken in by the combat and the adrenaline that they come back and they're like, I got to go back.
Oh, yeah.
And, man, that's...
Yeah, they call it chasing the dragon.
Yeah. So what you did out there, I mean, and you did that twice, right?
Oh, I don't know. I only went to like...
You went to Afghan and then Iraq?
I went to Afghanistan twice. Went to Iraq once, but I went to that region multiple times. I spent Christmas once on the U.S. Nimitz. Wow. That was crazy. I did a show.
That's a blessing, man. To be able to do that for the troops, those guys,
the greatest.
I'm sure there's so much anxiety a lot of those guys have. Especially the ones that have to actually go out and do the deed day to day.
Yeah.
The guys that are in the back with the radios are,
Yeah, but they're still making sacrifices.
Yeah.
That was the thing. I didn't know because I'm a civilian.
Oh.
I didn't realize the sacrifices everybody makes. Like
you're out of your country. You're out there for, I think, at least a year or something?
Yeah.
Some of those guys...
They call it getting extended.
Gosh.
There were dudes that signed up for the National Guard. And they were over there for multiple years.
Wow.
Because they kept on getting extended. And it's like, I thought this was 2 weeks a year and 1 weekend a month. And they were over there. And then you got like a lot of women. Like I remember talking to ladies that like weren't there for their kids' birthday parties.
Oh, that's rough.
You go, you don't realize what people go through.
Well, welcome to Barbasco 101 Bourbon class. Ha! How about that?
Bro, you really gonna open this?
We gotta taste it. OFC 1996. Something that we were dreaming about. Obviously, some people already ordered a few up here at Barbasco, but we haven't had a chance to talk about it or even taste it. Wow.
How many bottles do we get?
Only one. So on the back end, I can taste a little bit of tobacco, dry fruits, cherry,
a little cinnamon in there.
Cinnamon, the copper. But again, all this is because of the bourbon of the barrel. It's American French oak barrel.
What?
OFC means old-fashioned copper, since it's a tribute, homage to Mr. E.H. Taylor.
Bienvenido a Bar Vasco.
Yeah, and you're there to cheer them up and make them forget for at least an hour or 45 minutes, however long you're there for, right? And
yeah.
Now, When you've gone, was it just you or was it a group of
It
you
was
guys?
a group,
Oh,
always
cool.
a group, which makes it fun.
So you have multiple comedians keeping it going.
Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, it's great.
They need
And-
that.
Yeah, and it's the
Whoever
like,
came up with that was brilliant to bring comedians out there and
dude. My one buddy worked for the USO, and then he was like, because bands need roadies and you need tech and lights and he was like, but a comedian, you could do a show anywhere.
Yeah.
So then he started his own company called Comics on Duty. So I've had the privilege of working with both Comics on Duty and the USO. And it's, dude, I remember doing a show in Haiti right after the big earthquake, like in 08.
oh man, I remember that.
And there was this like hovercraft thing called a Hellcat. It's like out of a G.I. Joe toy. And we just pull up on a beach and there was like 12 Marines guarding supplies. And then we just popped out and they were like, what are you guys doing here? And they're like, we got you boys a comedy show. And they were like, what? And no stage, no microphone, nothing.
Just right there.
Just right there. It was awesome.
Gosh.
We've done shows on tops of tables.
That's crazy. That's cool.
The coolest.
Man, I remember Haiti. That was I had a chef working for me and he came in crying because he lost. He couldn't talk to his daughter. He didn't know where anybody was, and I think they lost 2 people in his family.
We were with
houses crushed them.
Dude, the weirdest thing about being a comedian is you get access to things that you like a normal
Yep.
like you go, what? So we were doing shows primarily with the U.S. Comfort, which is like a floating hospital. And the level of suffering and devastation after that was disturbing. But there was a general, I think, that wanted to fly over just to survey the damage. So he wanted us to go along with him. Like, what am I doing with some general in a Black Hawk flying? And we got to fly over. I mean, dude, it was rubble.
Wow.
It was, gone.
That's
Gone.
devastating.
I never even thought of that. It's the first time I thought of that in 20 years.
Wow.
You get to see weird stuff as a comedian.
Let's
Let's have some laughs, man. Now
Yeah,
I'm
bro,
like,
what's up?
Whoa, dude.
You want to hear a joke? No,
Always.
I couldn't even remember if I had one. I'm like the worst memory. So, I used to love Robin Williams,
The best.
the best, and I say used to only because he passed away.
God rest
but
his soul.
What's one of your guys that you were like, man, I want to be like that guy?
Dude, Robin was one of them for sure. Part of the reason why I really felt drawn to go to the Comedy Store was all of my heroes passed through that place.
Wow.
So this is how legendary of a talent Robin Williams was, God rest his soul. Mitzi Shore, Pauly's mom, I got very close with her, which is a blessing beyond description. And she told me the story where at one point she had multiple clubs in Los Angeles. And her starter club was in Westwood, right next to UCLA. That's how popular comedy was in like the 70s. That she had the main club in Hollywood. She had opened a theater in the Comedy Store was kind of like West Hollywood. Then she had the Richard Pryor Theater for more one-man shows and stuff for a little bit in Hollywood. But the beginning club was in Westwood. And for God's grace, she was there one night and she saw Robin Williams do like the open mic in Westwood. Put him in her car and drove him to the main room of the Comedy Store. He's the first guy that went from Westwood to Hollywood in one night. Yeah, so that was one of my guys.
So he started as a comedian and then an actor?
Yeah, and still
He
did
was a
comedy.
Brilliant actor.
Yeah,
Funny.
great. He did it all.
Actor, comedian.
Writer. That's what people don't realize. A lot of those guys can do everything. Like Jim Carrey, same thing. That was another reason why I got to the Comedy Store. Mitzi actually signed his green card, the paperwork, so he could get a green card and come from Canada to the States.
What? For Jim Carrey? Wow.
Yeah. For her 80th birthday, there was like maybe, 20 of us, 30 people at her house. And there were only 3 comedians that were from my era, my class. It was me, Ari, and Whitney Cummings, who's also a powerhouse comic. We're at Mitzi's house. And dude, Jim Carrey's he's hanging out. It's like 5 people hanging out.
Wow.
Just right there.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
Man, what a great story. I'm so glad. You know, it's so funny. We've hung out so much. And we never, ever talk about this. Is like hanging out with you.
Yeah, that's all
and
it
just
is. That's-
knowing everything about you. Because, you know, we hang out. We have JJ, we have
Yeah.
Father Zach,
Yeah.
you know, the other boys.
Those kids are awesome.
Yeah.
They give me so much hope.
Yeah.
Those
You know,
young guys are
they're
awesome.
Yeah, it's. I love them because I see that and I'm like, man, I miss that. Like, you know, I could have easily fallen into that type of behavior. I didn't. Obviously, you know, God had a different plan and I went through a different path.
Yeah.
But to bring those guys into my home and have Lucas, you know, hang out and rub elbows with them and, you know, and hear him say, yeah, I love those. Those guys are great. He goes, oh, when are they coming over?
They're good
You know?
dudes. Those
I'm like,
guys give
what?
me hope. JJ and even the younger guys.
Yep. Those
You
younger
know.
guys.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Daniel, a
Call.
call, Clay. A
Yeah,
call
Clay,
is
yeah.
that kid is he's special,
Yeah.
dude. We're blessed.
I told him, I was like, look, man, if you ever want to be a manager, I'll hire you.
He'd be
Don't
great.
get offended, Madison.
He's got great people skills. All of those
And he
dudes.
wants to do like a candy store.
I want a bankroll.
Yeah, I would. I'm like, dude, we could totally.
Dude,
I could totally see you doing
Dude,
that.
I want to get Father Francis to get some of that
Yep.
that good Ghana chocolate. It's like the best chocolate
Oh
in the
my
world.
gosh.
Then let a call be a genius with it.
Yep.
We do, you know, sweet cause or something we'll call it. And like
Calls, sweet cause.
yeah, and then give a portion to charity and go
Yep.
build schools and hospitals.
That's so cool.
That would be awesome.
And we had a great. I love the guys that we've been blessed.
It's divine intervention.
I feel blessed. I think you know, having you in, you know, at my house, and you know, I still need your mom's lasagna.
You got to come over.
I'm dying for that lasagna.
Yeah, it's legit, dude.
You know, I can eat a few slices.
Yeah, I remember Tony Hinchcliffe.
JJ talks about it.
Tony Hinchcliffe was like, I'm sending your mom a gift. I'm getting her a hat, a red hat that says "Make lasagna great again."
Oh my gosh, your mom would go bananas.
Bananas.
Oh my gosh.
He wants to fly my mom out just to cook.
Really?
He was like, Steve, like you can get a hotel, but I want your parents to come stay with me for a week.
Oh.
And just so he goes, we'll let your dad chill, and your mom will just cook.
And she would be happy as heck.
She loves it.
Yeah, wait. We got to get your mom over to my house one day. Once let the kitchen be built. Let's,
It'd be great.
you know, just hang out. I
That's
don't want her
it,
to
man.
work. I just want to
Hang out.
Yeah.
That's what makes this podcast has flown by because
Yeah.
we're just hanging out.
I can't believe it. Yeah, I mean, I've learned so much about you, bud. You know that I never asked. Hey, when I met you, all I heard was, "This guy's a really cool guy, and he's a comedian."
Yeah.
And you were at my house bringing me Mazzaro's cookies, and
Yeah.
you know, and then that was like what I think
I don't know how many
over
years ago. A
couple years ago, and next thing you know, it's like it's flown by. We hang out. I'm like, JJ will be like, "Hey, you know, Steve's in town. You want to hang out?" I'm like,
It's
"Yeah,
like, yeah, let's do it.
let's get Father Zach in here.
Yeah.
You know, let's get the guys. You know, it's usually around the cold weather. We can hang around my fire pit.
That's the best.
Yeah, with the boys.
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
all smoking stogies.
Ooh, yeah.
It's great.
We need that again. I appreciate having you come in and just talk about yourself
Dude, it's been
and
awesome.
your experiences. So
Yeah.
anything you want to throw the younger comedians that are up and coming that are like, I want to be famous. I want to be. What do you got to tell these guys? You know, tell them. What kind of message would you give these guys that are young, aspiring comedians that want to be big? You know, they're chasing that dream.
Two things. I think, because I was talking to the owner of a great club in Tampa last night called Side Splitters. It's great. One of the best clubs in the country. And essentially, what we were saying is what a lot of young comedians don't, even established comedians don't realize, is how you treat people off stage is just as, what you do off stage is just as important what you do on stage. Like if you're a jerk, nobody's going to want to work with you. So I would say keep that in mind. And then in terms of becoming a better comedian, just keep getting on stage. If you love it, don't quit. And just stage time. Get on stage anywhere, everywhere. Just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. And the world needs the laughs. Like if anybody's watching this and you want to do comedy, if there's ever anything I can do to help, I'm here to help. Shoot me a message. Because because the world needs that. I don't know. The world's in trouble right now. And we need to. The great thing about laughter is it brings people together. Like, we live in this culture where everybody wants to divide everybody. And I know firsthand that's ridiculous. Because the more diverse a comedy crowd is, the more fun we have.
Yes.
And it's a metaphor for life. I don't want to be surrounded by people that think exactly like me and look like me and talk. We're all part of God's family. There is no, it's all be as one.
That's how I grew up with no PC.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the beauty of it. You're around guys and girls and you're just letting it fly off the cuff. And
it's the best.
You know, and you're like, what? I can't believe you said that about me.
Yeah,
and you're like,
greatest.
wow, that was awesome.
Yeah, it's the best.
Now you're like,
sorry. My buddy Mike Black is a brilliant comedian and writer, and he talks about like the amount of trust it takes to actually make a joke with somebody.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody breaks your balls, they're trusting that you get it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But everybody right now is just walking on eggshells, and everybody's pointing fingers at each other. It's not good.
I tell people all the time, you know, if I'm giving you a hard time, it's because I really care about you.
Yeah.
If I don't talk to you, if I ignore you,
Yeah, or if you're like overly polite, yes, sir, thank you. I hate that kind of energy.
Yeah.
I like when people can just be themselves.
Well, you've been to my house. You've seen.
Oh, you guys are awesome.
It's a different animal out there.
It's awesome.
But we get to hang out. It's fun.
It
Man,
is
I
fun.
really appreciate it, Steve.
Dude, this was an honor.
Steve.
I am going to take a sip of this tequila. I'm
Finally.
staring at it.
I'm like, when is he going to take a sip? I felt like I was like, you know, giving you some.
Smooth.
It's so smooth as tequila.
It's really good.
Right?
Yeah, it's really good.
I was like, here's the peer pressure, bro. Come on. We're 10 years old again. Come on, Stevie. Drink it.
Dude, did you get to all your questions?
I can't even read my own handwriting.
That's how I am.
I was like I said, football. Well, I didn't even have to talk about the Comedy Store because you hit that.
Yeah.
You know, the confession one. I had to say that one. That was funny. Like, you go in there and you're like, Father Zach, you know, you're like, you know, a comedian and a priest.
Dude, at this point, I kind of view my sin as just stepping in dog poop. Where I'm like, just get it off, man. Like, I was in a confessional. I started this story. I didn't finish it. But, dude, no lie. This was somewhere in Tampa. And as I'm saying my most embarrassing stuff, you know, they have another door. And a nun walks into the other door. And the priest was like, I'm so sorry. I go, Father, that's just God's sense of humor. I go, I don't care who hears it. Just forgive me.
Yeah.
I did it.
I'm
I just
guilty
want
as
to forget.
charged.
Guilty as charged.
Jeez.
I'm never throwing the first stone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm worried about the plank in my own eye. I know. I got enough to deal with here.
Yeah.
That's why I just
sorry.
want to
Yeah.
love everybody, dude.
That's awesome. What a blessing.
Yeah, this is the greatest.
What do you think of the chef's table?
It's awesome.
There's no real chef's table. It's a snacks table.
But I can't wait to get back to your restaurant. By the way, my one buddy, you hooked me up with a table. He lives in California, and one of the reasons why he wants to move here now is because of 1961.
Yes.
His wife loved it. I took him up to the rooftop. We wined and dined them.
Did you try the cocktail? So Emerson, my partner, did they have any of the cocktails?
Oh, yeah.
The guy's like
There's the fancy ones.
That's
The LA cocktails.
Yeah, the LA. He's no, not LA. San Francisco. You can offend him by saying LA.
Whoa.
He's
NorCal.
from the Bay Area, bro. But dude, yeah, he you know, we're working on the next menu now.
Nice.
And he's over there like hammering. When are you gonna change the food menu? When are you gonna change the food menu? So that's my goal this week.
You know what I just realized? You changing up the menu is like a comedian changing up their material.
Where
it's like, bro, I already hit you with that.
so
Now I have to
much
write
work.
new stuff.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I've got to go into
Yeah.
the lab and come up with something that you're going to like. It's the same but different.
Yeah, he
On
comes up
brand.
with these crazy names, and I think I came up with one of his drink names. I can't say it,
All right.
but because we were like it was a joke. I was being funny, but it was like, well, actually, that's a pretty cool name.
That works.
But yeah, we that rooftop, you know, we were like, all right, we put a ton of money into this. This better work.
Better work.
But I think it's
is.
great.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and what he's done, all the bottles that he gets to bring in and drink, and
It's cool.
I gotta put his butt on my podcast.
That would be awesome.
Rip him.
I'd like to find out how you guys met.
Oh man,
That origin story.
well, I think we have some time, right? I got a couple minutes.
Yeah.
I gotta ask the guys. You know, they're over here like, yeah.
Thanks, dudes. You
They'll,
guys
they'll
are
be
awesome,
over
by
there
the
like,
way.
Marcos. You know, they're like, wrap it up. 5, 4, 3. Yeah. You know, they're like, cut it out. What was that thing? Cut it out.
Uncle
Remember?
Joey.
Yeah,
Another
Uncle
Comedy
Joey,
Store guy.
remember? no.
Another Dave Corrier, another Comedy Store comedian.
Oh, no way, really?
Yeah.
Gonna go, cut it out.
The best.
So crazy. I was still at the original little restaurant on South Florida Avenue, 1,200 square feet. You know, my friends and I built that restaurant.
Amazing.
We didn't have any money. I didn't have any money. So I had people from the community help me build it, put it together. Where I'm at now, the booths, my original booths came from that spot.
Wow.
Yeah. So they were throwing them out. They were like checkerboard, ugly as heck, and I dragged them to my old restaurant. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do with these, but we refurbished everything. And I remember it was in January, and Emerson and his wife, his mother-in-law was still around. She was like, why don't you guys go to that new restaurant, 1961, and kind of, you know, have dinner and just think about it, because he was over it. He was ready to go back to San Francisco.
Okay.
And I go to the table. He was on table 4. And I remember because it was closest to the door. It was like 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm like, hey, how you guys doing? And he introduced himself. We started talking. He's like, yeah, I'm a bartender. And I was like, well, I'm looking for a bartender. I literally hired him on the spot. I said, you're hired.
Wow.
And
what was that? Was that like a Holy Spirit thing, a gut thing? What was it?
I don't know. You know, I always say it's divine intervention.
Yeah, me too.
You know, because I needed that at the restaurant. I didn't have that. I never had that bar. Like I can drink.
Yeah.
Obviously, but I didn't know how to put drinks together. It was even a time where I was like chef the bartender. Like I was coming up with these like dumb drinks, you know, just for content, and you know, and they didn't taste bad, but they weren't great.
Right.
But Emerson was like what I am to food.
That's awesome.
That's what he is to drinks, and he was making. And we didn't even have a liquor license. I remember him like, bro, you need a liquor license. I'm like, I can't afford one, man. Like I'm barely making, you know, ends meet over here, and he would make these sake drinks.
Cool.
Like sacaritas, and you know, instead of margaritas, and then my manager was like, you know, with sake you can last longer, you know. So that was like our new tagline. We're like, hey, you don't need, you know, tequila, just use sake. You can last longer, you can drink more.
Yeah.
So
keep the party going.
Yeah, that was our whole entire spin, and he left. He ended up. So the restaurant that we took over, where I'm at now.
Yep.
They were a huge conglomerate restaurant, you know, tons of millions of dollars that they were spending on this place, and
Corporately owned type thing.
no, it was a privately owned restaurant, big restaurant, Brazilian restaurant, and he left to go be there, and I was very disappointed. I was like, man, well, you know, it kind of sucks, but I couldn't keep him. I couldn't contain him because, you know, he needed alcohol, he needed real booze. And he left. I look at it like he went to go make a name for himself and let people know that he existed. Mm-hmm. And then when that place went out of business, I ran into him. I didn't run into him. I found out where he was. And I was offered that building. I think it was a year later after they closed. A couple guys that I knew were like, hey, man, you know, we want to buy the building if you were willing to put your restaurant downstairs. And I was like, man, are you serious? Like, we love your restaurant. We think you're the only one that would make it down there.
Wow.
That can turn this place around. And that to me was like, wow, you know, that I didn't believe in myself and somebody else did.
Yeah,
you know?
I know that feeling.
I mean, I was like,
I know that feeling.
you know, so all I knew was good food and cooking. And I was like, you know, man, this is a real restaurant. This isn't like 1,200 square feet of just, you know, a room.
Yeah.
This was like a real restaurant.
You get to build a whole experience.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't have just one bathroom, you know? I have tons of bathrooms. I have tons of space. Like, now I need a team. Yeah. We had 17 employees at my last place. Like, we all fit in a limo for our Christmas party.
Yeah.
You know, we're like, yeah, you know. Now I need like
How many people work for you now?
150.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, you know, now we have to find places to have parties at. So he was working at this bar, and I walk in there, I go, hey, bro. And he goes, what's up, man? Like, you know, I think he thought that I was going to go in there and, like, chastise him, because he left me. And, you know, but I was past that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I saw the grace in this whole experience. And I was like, I need a partner, bro. Like, what do you think of this place? He goes, I think it's great. He goes, I don't want you to come work for me. I want you to be a partner. And he goes, here's my money. And I was like, well, that was easy.
Wow.
You know? And, you know, we've had our ups and downs. And you know, the beauty of it that we've come out of it on the other side.
Yeah.
And we're like, we step back and we're like, man, we built this, bro.
It's awesome.
Like, look what we've done. Between the food and the drinks, I couldn't have done it without him. And he couldn't have done it without me. It's the way we feel.
Yeah.
You know, that we have two different personalities that come together and you know, we love people like you do. We love people. We love entertaining people. I love watching people smile. I love when people like come to the restaurant. They're like, man, what a great place. Like,
Yeah.
I get offended when people don't have a good time in my restaurant. When I hear those 1-star reviews, I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You know? And then I get all the 5 stars. I'm like, that's what we're all about. You know, creating memorable moments is like at the front of 1961.
Absolutely.
And everything we do. And you know, when I sit back and I look at like what Emerson and I will travel. And we're like, dude, look at this drink. He's like, well, look at this food. You know, and we'll sit there and go back and forth and we're like, you know,
That's
write that
awesome.
down. Write that down. You know, and we'll sit there and go back like we want to open up another concept. I'm not gonna tell you what it is, but we want to open up another concept and we're like, I'm like, we gotta sit down and write it. You know, we gotta write that concept down so we can make it like so it becomes
a reality.
Yeah, you know, it has to
Sound
come
like
to
comedy
fruition.
writers. Like, this be a great movie.
Yeah,
All right,
but
dude,
you
now we got to
have
get
to
it on paper.
Yeah, everything is great as an idea, but if you don't write it down
Absolutely.
and do the work, you know, and I tell that to my son too, you know, so that's our next process now is to sit down and, you know, we did the restaurant and the banquet space opened. You know, I was like, I need to be able to do catering. I love catering. I love serving parties. I love when people go to a wedding and they're like, the food was amazing.
Yeah.
And to this day, 14 years ago, a wedding that I catered, they still come and talk about the food. That to me, I've made it at that point. I don't care.
100% so.
I don't care where I'm at. You know,
Dude, you're a
I don't
part of
care about the
somebody's
fame.
life, a core memory.
Exactly. When people are like, "You were the chef in my wedding,"
Yep.
or "I went to a wedding where you catered it. That was
the
amazing."
best.
That's all I care about. Because how many times you go to a wedding and people are like, "The food sucked,"
Yep.
you know, and I hate to hear that. So.
Right.
So we did the catering, the whole entire, and it was right during COVID. So it was like, oh my gosh, you know, we had a show kitchen. You know, we were doing like cooking classes for everybody.
Cool.
And then everybody was like, well, you guys need to open up the rooftop. You need a rooftop bar. We're like, we're not ready yet. You know, we weren't. I don't think we weren't ready until we went to Spain, and we were like, Emerson and I were like, all right, bro, we got to do it. And that was like probably the most expensive venture we've done together. But in Spain, that's where we came up with the name Vasco.
It's awesome.
You know, the Basque region, you know, the Four Corners. You know, you get all the...
Spain is beautiful.
Yeah. And then all the crazy drinks and the tapas. And, you know, we went to all these bars. We went to, like, the #1 bar in the world at the time.
Cool.
And we got in by, like crazy. You know how pushy I can be, right?
Personality.
Yeah.
Charming.
Yeah.
You
I'm
say
very
pushy,
charming.
I say charming.
Yeah. I charmed our way into the best bar in the world. And we're there drinking with the owners and learning about it.
That's
and
so
Emerson's
cool.
over there like taking notes. You know, that's such a badass. You know, and I'm over there like, yeah, this is so cool. And then we're like, okay, well, let's do this. And then, you know, of course, his mind goes into like, how can I make it happen? Like, is it really practical?
Right.
You know, I'm over there like, yeah, bro,
This will be a blast.
Buy it, bro. Buy it. Let's buy
How
the
fast does it go?
Yeah.
Spend it. Let's go.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, it'll never work. You know, we need to balance it out. I'm like, okay, fine. So then, you know, boom, rooftop bar, Vasco rooftop. You know, and now we're gonna redo the whole downstairs, kind of give it a facelift.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's been a blessing, man. You know, and you know, we've been able to provide so much for our community. It's
Yeah,
great.
it's great.
And meet people like you, man. You know, you're a blessing to have as one of my friends.
I feel the same way, bro.
You know, you and the group
God's
that we
the
hang out
best.
with, yeah.
Dude, those kids, they inspire me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think,
You know what, these guys.
they're like, bro,
Dude,
I
this
gotta
was
go to
great.
dinner,
Yeah.
man.
They're like, stop talking.
Yeah. You get two guys that can just talk your ear off.
Yeah, but
we
dude,
talk
this is
forever.
dude, I've done podcasts where people are like, so what else? It's like a bad, like awkward first date, and you're like, this was a disaster. But this was fun, dude.
Well, obviously, you know, I enjoy talking. You know, we don't stay at my house for less than 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those cigars were like, man.
Shout out to Father Blake for hooking us up.
Oh,
it was Father
yeah.
Blake that hooked us up.
Man.
Because you know he's going to be watching him. Gentlemen, I didn't hear my name.
Yeah.
It's like, we got you, Padre.
Blake, we got you, bro. And Father Zach's over there like, bro, what's up,
He's
Doc?
like, I got 10 shout outs.
Yeah. Yeah, Father Zach's like, I got 10, bro.
Yeah.
Oh, man. What a great group.
This was awesome.
So the saddest place on earth, LA. What made you want to move to Lakeland when you left LA?
That's a good question. And I really do want to be like, there was a lot I loved about Los Angeles. But to see it change was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And like I talked about my buddy Luis, and I think it was like 2019 when I noticed people weren't willing to hold the door for him. I went, this is like, and it's not the people that grow up there, and it's the people that think they're cool. Like I have a joke that I'm doing now where the reason why LA is so sad is because nobody moves there happy. Like everybody moves to Los Angeles and their thought is, I'll show you. I'll show you all. One day you're going to be happy to be my friend. You know, it's like.
You're going to want to know me.
Yes. And when that energy, like there was a comedian, Mark Maron, who's brilliant, had a joke. He goes, that's not smog in Los Angeles. That's vaporized disappointment. You know what I mean?
That's
Right?
awesome.
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's a great guy too.
Vaporized disappointment.
But for me, so like, I was like, I'd gotten so close to God that I no longer needed to become rich and famous to feel worthy. Yeah. I'm like, dude, I could go get a job at home. I don't know what you have planned for me, Lord, but I'm good with whatever it is. But God was like, give me another year.
If you say Home Depot, I'm going to have to ask you for a discount.
Dude, that place is a toy store for grown-ups. I wish I had tangible man skills. Like, I want to become best friends with a retired, like, carpenter and just do projects.
I go in there and I'm
love it.
like, I don't need a saw, but I want the saw.
Yeah, it just looks cool. I'm like, can I just play with that for a little bit?
Table saw? I don't need it, but...
Dude, it's the best. I love that place.
Shop vac? I've got 4 because I keep walking in here buying them.
Dude, that was the first thing I bought for my house. My buddy Kevin was like,
vac.
you need a shop vac. And I've used it so much. I'd use that before I call a plumber. Hit that in my bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
Those hair clogs, gone. Anyway, so I'm actually telling this story on the Ari Shaffir Storyteller show.
Oh, wow.
About how I got here. Because a kid that grew up in Philly that spent 20 years in Hollywood shouldn't know about Polk. But I had one of my absolute best friends in the world is this guy, John McNichol, who was like a executive in the music business and gave it all up to run a charity.
Oh, wow.
Called Regular Hero. And what Regular Hero did was they were the charity for people that just wanted to do good stuff. So I was already doing stuff at Children's Hospital, and Bill Burr, the comedian, helped me with a GoFundMe, and I raised like $17,000 in 2 weeks to help a couple families at Children's Hospital. I had money left over, and I was going to start my own charity. Then my buddy was like, you need to meet McNichol. You don't need to start your own charity. You can use his 501c3. So I have a funny joke about, I'm not going to do it here, but he's a Christian and I'm a Christian, and we became best friends. We did so much good in LA. Wow. We helped a lot of people. If we raised 10 grand, they got 10 grand. There was no silliness involved. And then during COVID, we're checking in on each other every day. And I remember the phone call vividly. He goes, brother, I think we're living in end times. I go, yeah. He goes, it's time to get out of LA. He goes, I got to get you to Polk. I go, Polk? What's Polk? He goes, Polk County. He goes, it's where you want to be if things go sideways. I go, what do you mean? He goes, buddy, it's all Bibles and guns. It's the greatest place on earth. And then he goes, plus, we have the best sheriff in the country. And honest to goodness, he sent me a clip of Sheriff Grady. And I started looking for houses. I'm like, that guy's awesome.
Way. I love Grady.
He's the reason why I buy his merch. I have his T-shirts. I have dolls. That's why I moved here. And when I was looking at houses, actually my real estate agent, when I closed on my house, took me to 1961 to celebrate. It was my first time there.
What?
Yeah, Lana Burke. She was the sweetest, best lady ever. But we started to look at, because I was living at the beach at the time. And I'm like, where's the sheriff? I go, she was showing me houses in Hillsborough or something. I go, Is that where the sheriff is? She's like, no, that's got to be. And I went, well, only show me houses where we have Sheriff Grady.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Have you met Sheriff Grady?
Not yet.
Oh
I'm
my
scared.
gosh.
I'm going to be like a little kid. Like, you know how little kids want to meet Santa Claus?
You
and then
should've-
they meet Santa Claus and they don't know what to say.
I wish I would have known. I would have brought you to the last podcast.
I would
when
have
it was
embarrassed you. I would have
Sheriff-
just shook his hand. I would have not made eye contact.
No, he makes
He's
you.
so awesome.
He makes you feel so comfortable.
Dude, he's funnier than any comedian.
And he, I don't
He's
know
hilarious.
if he tries to be, but he's just so. I mean, I called him an anomaly. He's an anomaly,
awesome.
man. Like his
I moved my parents here because I know with Sheriff Grady they're going to be safe.
awesome.
That's real.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, we've been here 14 years, and I think he's been great. You know, I've only met him a handful of times before 1961, and then you know, as we started to work with him, like every hurricane, his
awesome.
sheriffs eat at the restaurant, and I was like, oh man, you know, I learned that if he talks to you, he can talk your ear off. Like I think he can talk more than you and I can.
That's awesome.
And if he talks to you a lot, like he really genuinely likes you.
That's cool.
That's what I feel. Like, and he'll sit there and talk, and he's, you know, he can be pretty funny.
Oh, he's hilarious.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
He's awesome. And I love the fact, like,
That's
he
so cool.
preaches in churches. He gets sworn in on 2 Bibles. He's a real Christian.
Wow.
And that means a lot to me. After being in Hollywood for 20 years, I'm like, I need to be around
You went from the
one side to the other.
from one extreme to the other.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool. You know, and I know it's time. You know, on my Garmin watch. You know, Garmin watch. You know, I don't. It's not a plug.
Sponsor.
They don't sponsor us.
But they should.
This is the old one, so I kind of need the new one. Let's work on this, Garmin. You know, but man, that is. I love having you. I enjoy the company. I enjoy the. It was such
It
an
flew
easy.
by. Yeah, this is how it should be. This is how
Yeah.
life should be. I hope at some point California has its resurgence. And I did talk to a buddy of mine who's awesome, and he said the fires were a blessing in disguise. Like, because he wanted to show his kids how much giving back and why it's important. They were so stocked on volunteers that you couldn't even find a place to volunteer.
Wow.
And that's awesome.
Wow.
That's awesome. And sometimes you have to go through tough times to make you appreciate things and
That
be a little less selfish.
Burn it and start over.
Hey, man, sometimes it's suffering that lets you realize what's important.
Yeah.
I can, at least in my own life, that's been the truth.
You're right, man. You know, when you hit that, you know, that trajectory down, and you're, you know, and then you start climbing slowly, and you see the grace of
Yeah.
God, and you feel it's.
Dude, my coolest friends,
changes.
my buddies that are in recovery, are the coolest people in the world. Or like, I have so many friends. Like, I wish I had a Saul to Paul conversion story for you, but mine's been very gradual. But I know people that were savages, and if you met them now, you're like, what?
I know a couple of people like that, and
They're my favorite.
Yeah.
Honestly, they're my favorite. The greatest sinners become the greatest saints.
Yep.
That's the absolute truth. They really live it. Because they had an experience with it.
Yeah.
You know, they know they're forgiven. So they live in that overflow. They have so much love and grace that it pours out of them to others. They're my favorite people where I'm like, you've been to prison? They're like, well, God had a plan.
yeah, it is the truth.
Dude, it's 100%. But like, I'm like, if you go to, like, when people are like, oh, Christians are all hypocrites and stuff, I'm like, you're not meeting the right. I go, don't look for the guy in the suit in church.
Yeah.
Look for the guy standing in the back, holding back tears,
Yeah.
sleeved up. That guy met Jesus. That's not just a book. That's a way of life for that dude.
Man, that is so true, because
It's
I hear
100%
it all
real.
the time. Oh, Christians are hypocrites, and I'm like, you know what?
Everybody's a hypocrite.
Everybody.
I'm just a broken soul.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm worried about the plank in my own eye. I don't have, but I get it. But a church isn't a trophy case for perfect souls. It's a hospital for broken souls.
For broken
That's
souls.
it.
That's very
Go get
well
your
said.
hug.
Great job, man. That was
That's
very
it.
well said.
Go get your hug, bro.
Yeah.
That's all it is. That's all it is. That's all a relationship with Jesus is.
You
Just
said that,
getting a hug.
and I remember Robin Williams with the big red nose. That was
Patch Adams.
Patch Adams.
Dude, I got a couple great Robin Williams stories. I'll tell you after the podcast. The guy was awesome. One of my favorites was, for real, true story. This is the dead years of the Comedy Store when there's like 12 customers. And we're all just like degenerates. It was an orphanage for grown-ups. That's all the Comedy Store was. We had no place else to go. And we're all standing at the back parking lot in this limo.
Is that
pulls
like
up.
Denny's at 4 a.m?
100% so, but nobody could afford food. That's the only difference. We had literally nowhere to go. And this limo pulls up, and Robin Williams gets out. He just left a movie premiere for a movie he was not proud of. And we're like, what's Robin Williams? He's in a tuxedo walking through the parking lot. And he sees 8 no-name comedians hanging out in the back. And he goes, I just left a movie premiere. I'm sorry. Can I just hang out with you guys?
Wow.
He was like, he goes, I was around the Hollywood people. I need to be around my own people tonight. And he just wanted to hang out with comics. Cool dude.
Man, that sucks because he was one of my favorite guys on TV, and man, that's such a tragic loss.
Very sad.
That's you could see it because that came through in his movies and his personality. He was a great actor, but
amazing.
You couldn't hide that goodness in him.
I met a homeless guy in New York a couple of years ago. And literally, I'm walking down the street and I'm talking to some homeless dude, whatever. We start to talk, and he was like, what is it about? And he was like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm a comedian. He was like, and then he told me a story about when he met Robin Williams.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't realize that Robin used to have written into all of his movie contracts, he would have him hire homeless people, local hire, and give homeless people jobs on every film that he shot.
Wow.
He lived it. He was a good dude. Just so sad that sometimes people that are so filled with love can't really experience it for themselves.
Yeah.
Thank you, I like to think he faked his own death. Have you seen that guy on Instagram that sounds just like him? Yeah.
Oh, can you imagine if that was true?
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. He comes out somewhere else.
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Yeah, I would never want to be that kind of fame. That had to be tough.
Yeah, that is tough. Man, that's a rough. I think about it. There's so many famous people that, they go off the deep end. I think it's just too much.
Too much.
Gosh, everybody's looking at you, day and night, following you around.
Yeah, it sucks.
Waiting for you to make a mistake.
Oh, that especially.
And I do it in air quotes because it's like,
be human.
Yeah. Cancel that guy. Cancel him.
Cancel that guy for being human.
Yeah, that's terrible. I see it all the time. Cancel culture is just.
I think that's run its course, God willing. I think it has. I think people.
They keep trying. People love that. That generation just love to cancel people. It sucks. Just be human.
That's it. Yeah, I messed up.
Yep.
I'm sorry. And you know what? The worst thing about my contrition, I'm going to mess up again.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That's so true.
Not only am I sorry for this, but I apologize in advance for the next time I act like an idiot.
You're going to be like, Padre?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll meet you at the same place. Yeah. There have been times I've picked up Father's act. I'm like, Padre, I need a quick spiritual shower.
Can we drive and
exactly.
confess while we're driving?
Yep. Yeah, man.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you, Steve.
I love you, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Likewise, man. Thank you. And that's it. The Chef's Table.